Podcast.
It's Build the Big Podcast, a marketing podcast for podcasters. I'm David Hooper, bigpodcast.com. Easy to remember, right? Because that's what you want. You want a big podcast. You want a lot of people listening. You want to make impact. You want to make money with your podcast. That's what I help you do there, bigpodcast.com. It's also what I help you do here and the newsletter that I've got and the mastermind group that I've got. I got a lot of stuff for you. All of it in service of growing your audience. If you are looking to plug in a microphone or learn about tech stuff, this is not for you unless it's in service of those things. So I do talk about it sometimes, but if you're just looking for the basics, microphones, headphones, cables, interfaces, don't know, doesn't matter to me, not unless it helps me get out a message. And I'll give you a quick example of that. I'm looking at a Focusrite Scarlett here in my studio. It's a great interface. You might be familiar with it. It's a red box. Everybody and his brother has one. Then somebody comes out with a new interface. Rode has a brand new interface, the Rodecaster Duo 2-channel Rode mixer. All right, it's cool. I'm not going to get it. Why? It does not affect me reaching you. If you're in that same, this thing is built like a tank. It sounds fantastic, and I'm going to run it into the ground. So I'm going to save you some money on your podcast. Let's look at it like that. Not only am I helping you make money with your podcast, I'm also helping you save money with your podcast. All right, let's talk about marketing. You may be wondering about Twitter. Twitter, oh man, I've been on it for a long time. It is one of my favorite social media channels, or was. I think there's something really amazing about it. I talked about it a couple of episodes ago. The fact that you can get with listeners, you can have 280 characters and there can be a quick message. Hey, I like the show. I like this about the show. I didn't like this about the show. I've got a question about this. I got a question about that. Super quick questions, super quick comments, super quick answers. It's a nice way to have personal interaction with a lot of people without getting bogged down with 1,000, 10,000, 15,000 word email. You get those, right? Your listener wants to tell you their entire life story. Yeah, sometimes that happens. That's good. You're connecting with people, right? But when it comes to scale, Twitter was great. And you may be wondering, because things have changed, algorithms, just the ups and downs, can you post, can you not? I mean, it's getting clunky, man. Should I stay with Twitter? I'm going to read you a message from the NPR affiliate WPLN here in Nashville. I think these guys said it really well, because it's not just Twitter that you might be wondering about when it comes to these things. It is all social media. Spotify was a distribution partner that a lot of people are wondering, should I even work with them? And that was the issue when I was in the music business as well. A lot of musicians feel the same way. Should I work with Spotify? All right, we're going to get into this. Let me read the letter. This is from Steve Swenson, President and CEO, Nashville Public Radio. You may have heard about Twitter's decision to falsely label NPR. As a result, NPR decided to stop posting its credible and trusted reporting on the platform. We agree with the decision NPR made to protect its long-earned national and international reputation of editorial independence. Here in Middle Tennessee, Nashville Public Radio shares our content on multiple platforms, including Twitter, so that our audience can receive timely and factual information on their preferred social media. During recent significant breaking news events in Nashville, from the horrific school shooting to the state legislature expulsions and reinstatements, Twitter has been the most immediate tool available to WPLN reporters in the field to relay the latest information to our audience across our newscasts, our daily show, This is Nashville, and our sister station, 91.1 WNXP. For that reason, we will continue to serve our Twitter readers with fact-based, trusted journalism to fulfill our promise of public service. We will also monitor Twitter's actions and reevaluate our positions as events warrant. That is well said to me. And again, this is something that podcasters, I feel, have already thought about way before Twitter was brought into the discussion. When it comes to Spotify, arguably a lot of misinformation, specifically about their podcasts. Maybe there's some podcasts that Spotify is producing that you don't like the content. You think it's unethical. You think it's vulgar. You don't agree with the politics. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons when you've got a big network to find something to hate. But here's the question, and I thought about this with Spotify, because I've got an issue when it comes to people who listen to this podcast on non-Apple devices. When it comes to Apple, that's easy. There's one option for you: iPhone, Apple Podcasts. That's it. But when it comes to Android, where do you go? I would like to think that Google owns Android. Google, it's huge. It's good to be on Google's good side. For a long time, I was sending people to Google Music or Google Podcast or whatever they were calling it. But the reality is, when it comes to Android devices, and really iPhone as well, Spotify is the only competition that Apple Podcast has. You could argue there's a million places. You could go to Stitcher. You could go to Radio Public, whatever it's called now. You could argue there are a million other places, and there are. There are different places where you can get podcasts. There are different podcast apps. But when you get into 1%, 2%, 0.5% of all podcast listening, I've only got a limited amount of space on this podcast or on the website or on anything that I print, definitely. You're not going to name every single podcast app that somebody can go to. I don't even do this on my website. I see a lot of people and they'll say, subscribe to the podcast. And you click on the link and there's 8,000 images that pop up, icons. And you pick one of them. No, man. No. If you're looking at what people are using, they're using Spotify and they're using Apple. Maybe they're using Google, maybe they're using Amazon, but nowhere near what they're doing with Spotify and Apple. And that's the rub, right? You might not like Spotify. You might not like Twitter, but your people are there. You're spreading a helpful message. It's kind of the world we live in, right? Do you want to get the message out to these people? Can you help them? Sometimes you got to do stuff that maybe is, it's a little messy. I mean, I think the world is messy, right? I'll give you an example of this. This is in the podcasting space. I'm working with a couple of different podcasts. One of them is about human trafficking. Very serious subject. And they're doing it from, let's call it a Christian perspective. It's not full out, let's pray at the beginning of this podcast and Jesus and God and the Bible. That stuff is not mentioned within the podcast. But it is a religious charity. We'll call it a charity, a religious organization, whatever. There's a foundation of Christian religion in this group that's making this podcast. On the other side of that, I'm working with some guys. They got a podcast called What's Hot in the Strip Clubs. It's a music podcast. It's getting into interviews, talking about the behind the scenes of the strip club industry, adult nightclub. That's the official name. You know who's in the trenches with human trafficking? Adult nightclubs. Truckers. If you want boots on the ground, the guys that are seeing people that are trafficked are in these industries. Nightclubs, hospitality, hotel business. I mean, these guys are seeing it day in, day out. Human trafficking is not just streetwalkers or Craigslist ads or Backpage ads or cam girls. It is adult businesses and it is non-adult businesses. There are a lot of people that are affected by this. But in the middle ground there, it is an adult business, adult nightclub. There are these guys that have boots on the ground, and sometimes they see things like that because it's quick money, it's a cash business, whatever. Hey, let's put these two guys together. Boots on the ground, they can help get the message out. You're trying to spread a message, right? That's why you do this podcast about human trafficking. That's what you're trying to stop, is human trafficking and drugs and some of the other problems that we would see in the nightclub industry. People looking for better options for their lives. All right. Because that's the deal, right? It's messy. There's good things that come from that business and it's very empowering to some people, but there's the double-edged sword of it. It's also disempowering to some people. And that's the way all businesses are. That's the way the music industry works. There's some people that feel exploited. There's some people who feel empowered. That is the way podcasting works. That is the way any business works. But the point is, some people do not see that gray area. They don't see that there's good and there's also bad with everything. And if we write off Spotify or we write off Twitter, we're missing a lot of the good. Just like the guys with this human trafficking podcast, they're missing the good by being associated with somebody who's a little messy. It's a little messy. I get it. We would love to be in a world that is all black and white. Instead, we call it harm reduction. It's giving needles to drug addicts. It's buying a lighter for somebody who's smoking weed so he doesn't set his house on fire by trying to light something on a stove or light something with toilet paper or light something with a candle. I don't know. You see what I mean? It's like there's safe ways to do things and there are safer ways to do things. And then there's completely disregarding what's actually happening in the world. There are ways to do things that are less harmful, and there's completely disregarding those and saying, la, 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 la. We just want to feel like we are doing something, but we're actually not doing anything. I would encourage you to be on Twitter. I'm still there. Am I giving Elon money? No. No. I don't need a blue check mark. It looks desperate. Paying for it makes it look desperate. No, hell no. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to be there as long as people are there. I'll be answering questions, still interacting with it. If you want to reach out to me, at David Hooper on Twitter. Talked about this a couple of episodes ago. Interacting with people is super important for building your audience. We talk about just the building of the audience, but if you don't take care of the audience that you've got, those people are going to leave. You got to take care of the audience that you've got. Twitter is a great way to do that. As far as reaching people, if you got a younger audience or even a not so young audience, Spotify is great, man. Everybody's got Spotify. I listen to music on Spotify, not really podcasts so much. But if I needed to get a podcast, I could. And there are a lot of podcasters that are on Spotify listening to this right now. So of course I'm going to be on Spotify because I want to help you spread your message, man. I want to help you spread your message. I get it, ethics and all. There's some things that I'm not doing. You will not see me at certain events in the podcasting space because I don't believe what they're doing. I'll leave it at that. You're not going to see me take on certain work because I don't believe what they are doing. I had a company here in Nashville, and you would know them if I mentioned them to you. It's a right-wing company, arguably hate speech. Reached out to me about some podcasting work, and my response? Hell no. Actually, there was no response. I didn't respond. It's a headhunter came to me. You know, there's lines, right? There's lines. And I understand this too, that you need to feed your family and take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of others. But if you've got people that you need to get a message to, whether that's in a strip club or whether that's on Spotify or whether that's via Twitter, you need to go there. You need to go there. People are going to have their opinions on it. Don't worry about those people. Worry about your audience. It's taking care of the people that you're trying to get your message to. This is how people become isolated. And I'm not one of these people say, oh, both sides and all this. But if you don't have conversations with people and listen to them and they listen to you, we're just going to get into silos, man. And what I'm trying to do via podcasting is break those silos. Let's actually have some real conversations, or as real as it can get from one person to another via microphone and headphones. It's not the same as sitting down, but it is an opportunity for you. Twitter, an opportunity for you. Go where your people are. Don't worry about what other people are thinking or what trends are doing. If you feel drawn to be there, and I'm not saying this from an ego thing, like, oh, I had 10,000 people on Spotify or 10,000 people on Twitter. It's not an ego thing. It's actually reaching people with a message. If you're effectively doing that, great. Now, if you're not doing it effectively, you've got to walk away from a social media network, do it by all means. Who cares how many people you got there if you're not actually reaching them? But if you are reaching them, do it. If you got questions, you got thoughts about this, I would love to hear it. How are you balancing this, getting into the messiness of getting your message out? Because the world is not black and white. How are you navigating it? I would love to know. Hit me up on Twitter, at David Hooper on Twitter. I'm on Mastodon. I'm easy to reach. Bigpodcast.com. That's the website. If you want to make sure that you don't miss any of these messages that I've got, and if you want to make sure that you don't miss future episodes, this is how to make that happen. Bigpodcast.com. You can subscribe there. The kids call it follow. All the ones who are on Spotify. They're calling it follow. And this is the URL, bigpodcast.com/subscribe. You can do it all. You can subscribe to Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe to Android via Spotify. I've got one click that makes those possible. I've got an RSS feed. So wherever you are, you can get this podcast. And I've got a QR code that makes it really easy. You don't even have to type. You just point your camera at the screen, takes it from the desktop screen to your phone. Get the podcast wherever you get podcasts. I've made it so easy for you. One click is all it takes to subscribe. You don't like it? One click is all it takes to unsubscribe. Either way, I got you covered at bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Go there now. Hit me up on Twitter. Let me know how you're handling the sticky situations of getting your message out, connecting with people where it's a little messy. People are judging you. Let me know at David Hooper on Twitter, and I will see you on the next episode of Build a Big Podcast.